All right, let's take a look at our practice test. We're told to solve each equation. And let's take a look at problem number 1. So this guy has negative 2/3 x plus 11 over 6. This is set equal to x plus 91 over 6. Now, if you have fractions in your equation, you can clear them or you cannot clear them. You'll get the same answer either way. A lot of times we'll clear them with fractions because it does make it a little bit easier to work with them. So if you want to do that, basically what you would do is look at all your denominators. So you have a 3, a 6, and a 6. And you want to find what is the least common denominator. And you do that by finding the least common multiple, or your LCM, of those denominators. So if I think about 3, it's a prime number. If I think about 6, it's 2 times 3. And 6 is again 2 times 3. So the least common multiple there would be 6. So I would just multiply both sides of the equation by that number 6. This is the least common multiple of, again, the 3 and the 6, or you could say the least common denominator that you can have here. So I'll go ahead and say this is 6 being multiplied by this negative 2/3 x plus 11 6. I'm using parentheses here because the 6 is going to basically multiply by each. And this is equal to, let's go ahead and put x plus 91 over 6 like this. And I'll put times 6 like this. And basically, this is going to, again, get distributed to each guy inside. So everything is being multiplied by 6. Remember, this is legal because of our multiplication property of equality. We can always multiply both sides of an equation by the same non-zero number and not change the solution set. Okay, so distributing this in, let me show this the long way. So 6 times negative 2/3 x like this, plus 6 times 11 6 is equal to, you'll have 6 times x, which is just 6x, plus 91 over 6 times 6. And all this is doing is just clearing all the denominators for you. So 6 divided by 3 would be 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. So you get negative 4x plus 6 divided by 6 is 1. This is 11. This equals, here you have 6x. And then plus 6 divided by 6 is 1. 91 would just be there. Okay. So now you have this into a format that you're used to working with. And from here, it's really easy to solve the equation. Move all your variable terms to one side, all the numbers, or you would say the constants, to the other. Again, personally, I like my variable to be on the left. If you like yours on the right, you can do that as well. But I'm going to subtract 6x away from both sides of the equation. And I'm going to subtract 11 away from both sides of the equation. So let me show this is canceling and this is canceling. And essentially what you're going to have here is negative 4x minus 6x would be negative 10x. And this will be equal to 91 minus 11 is going to be positive 80. And to finish this off, remember, I want to isolate x. That's how I solve an equation. So to do that, all I really need to do here is divide both sides of the equation by negative 10. This is my coefficient of x, or what is multiplying x. So if I divide by negative 10 there, this cancels with this and gives me a 1. So I have 1x, or just x. And this will be equal to, do the same thing over here, divide by negative 10. 80 divided by negative 10 would be negative 8. So this is my solution. Again, you know how to check it at this point. You take this negative 8, you plug it in for each occurrence of x in the original equation, and make sure the left side equals the right side. Okay, let's look at another example. So here is example 2, and we'll pick up the pace a little bit here. We have 1/4 x plus 15/4 is equal to 15/4 plus 9/7 x. Okay, what's the LCD? What is the least common denominator here? Again, look at all your denominators. You have a 4, a 4, a 4, and a 7. So what is the least common multiple of 4 and 7? That's going to be 28, right? Because 4 is 2 times 2. 2 is a prime number. 7 is a prime number. So really it would be 2 times 2 times 7, which is 28. So I would multiply both sides of the equation by 28. And again, you could put this out in front of some parentheses if you want, but you end up just distributing it in. So I'm just going to multiply each guy here by 28. I think that's a little bit faster. So 28 times 1/4 x plus 28 times 15/4 is equal to 28 times 15/4, and then plus 28 times 9/7 x like this. All right, so 28 divided by 4 is 7. So let's cancel this with this and put a 7. And then again, 28 divided by 4 is 7. And then 28 divided by 4 is 7. And then 28 divided by 7 is 4. Here we would just have 7x and then plus, what is 7 times 15? If you punch that into a calculator, you get 105. This equals, again, you'd have 7 times 15, so that's 105. And then we're going to go plus 4 times 9 is 36, and then times x, so this would be 36x. All right, now when you have the same thing on each side of an equation, you can get rid of it, because I could subtract 105 away from each side, but the quicker way is just to cancel it away. Okay, so that's going to be gone. Now, we can see at this point that the solution will be that x is 0, or hopefully you can see that. If you can't, it's not that big of a deal. Let's just solve this completely. Let's subtract 36x away from each side of the equation. And let me go ahead and cancel this. And so the right side here is just 0. On the left side, if you do 7x minus 36x, that's going to give you negative 29x. And of course, we would divide both sides by negative 29. And as I said a moment ago, our solution here is going to be that x is equal to 0. So this would be our solution. Okay, let's look at another one. So here we have negative 81 over 14 plus 1 over 6x is equal to 8 over 7x minus 23 over 6. So what is my LCD? Let's think about these denominators. You've got 14, 6, 7, and 6. Okay, so what is 14? It's 7 times 2. 6 is 2 times 3. 7 is prime. And 6 is 2 times 3. So if I'm building the LCM, that would be what? Every prime factor goes in, but again, you use the largest number of repeats between the factorizations. So I have a 7 here and a 7 here, so 1 goes in. I have a 2 here, a 2 here, and a 2 here, so 1 goes in. I have a 3 here and a 3 here, so 1 goes in. So 7 times 2 is 14. 14 times 3 is 42. So that's what I want to use. So I'm just going to multiply both sides of the equation by 42. And let's just go ahead and do that. So we're going to have 42 times negative 81 over 14 plus you're going to have 42 times 1/6x equals 8/7 x times 42. And I probably should reverse that. So let's go ahead and put the 42 out in front like this times 8/7 x. And then minus, you're going to have 23 over 6 times 42. Okay, let's just go through and do some canceling real quick. 42 divided by 14 is 3. 42 divided by 6 is 7. 42 divided by 7 is 6. And then 42 divided by 6 is 7. Okay, so 3 times negative 81 is negative 243. And then plus, you'd have 7x, and this equals 6 times 8 is 48, so 48x. And then minus, what is 7 times 23? Punch that into your calculator, you get 161. Okay, let's come down here a little bit, and let's see what we have. So I'm going to subtract 48x away from each side of the equation. And let me make that a little bit better. And let's go ahead and show this as canceling. And let's add 243 to both sides of the equation. And let's go ahead and show that as canceling. So what is 7x minus 48x? That's going to be negative 41x. This is equal to, what is negative 161 plus 243? Well, that's going to give me 82. Okay, as a final step, remember, I want to get x by itself. So let's divide both sides by negative 41, that coefficient of x. And essentially, this cancels. You get x is equal to 82 divided by negative 41 would be negative 2. So this is my solution, x equals negative 2. All right, let's take a look at problem number 4. So we have 35 over 12x plus 1 plus 1/3 x is equal to 1/2 x minus 1/4. All right, so my LCM of 12, 3, 2, and 4 is going to be 12. Okay, so that's the least common denominator that I can form here. And so basically, I would multiply everything by 12. Again, once you get faster at this, you can just do it mentally. So let's just try to do that for this one. So I know if I multiply this by 12, the 12 in the denominator is going to cancel, right? So I would just be left with 35x and then plus. If I multiply this by 12, I would get 12, then plus. If I multiply 1/3 by 12, 12 divided by 3 is 4, and then 4 times 1 is 4, so this would be 4x. And this equals 1/2 times 12 would be 6. And then times x, and then minus 1/4 times 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So this would be 3 like this. Okay, again, if that's a little too fast for you, you can always pause the video and you can show it as being multiplied by each guy here and then go through the cancellations and the simplifications from there. Okay, so what I want to do now is combine any like terms. 35x plus 4x would give me 39x, and then plus 12, and this equals 6x minus 3. So let's go ahead and subtract 12 away from each side of the equation. Let's come down here and see what we're looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. And also, I'm going to subtract 6x away from each side of the equation. So let's go ahead and cancel this guy right here as well. Okay, so 39x minus 6x is going to be positive 33x. And this equals, if I do negative 3 minus 12, that's going to be negative 15. So to get my final answer here, again, I want to divide both sides by 33, the coefficient of x, so that x will be by itself. And let's slide down here. So we know this cancels. You'll get x is equal to Negative 15 over 33. Well, we know this is negative, and this is not going to be an integer or something like that. So we really just want to think about simplifying the fraction 15, which is 5 times 3, over 33, which is 11 times 3. So let's just go ahead and cancel this 3 with this 3. So I'm going to report my answer as negative 5 elevenths. So x is equal to negative 5 elevenths, like this. All right, let's look at problem number 5. So here we have 207 over 25 minus 7 halves x is equal to negative 9 fifths times the quantity 3 halves x minus 19 fifths. All right, so the idea here is that if you have parentheses involved, you need to remove those first before you try to find your LCD. So let's just go ahead and copy this left side to 207 over 25 minus 7 halves x is equal to, I'm going to distribute this in. So basically I'm just going to multiply. I know this is going to be negative. 9 times 3 is 27 and 5 times 2 is 10. And then I'll have x that comes along for the ride. Negative times negative is positive. And then basically you would have 9 times 19, which is 171. And then 5 times 5, which is 25. Okay, so now that I've removed the parentheses there, I can go through and clear my fractions. If you look at the denominators, I've got 25, I've got 2, 10, and 25. So again, now let's write this as 5 times 5. 2 is a prime number, 10 is 5 times 2, and 25 again is 5 times 5. So if I'm building the LCM, again, 5 is going to go in there. It occurs twice here, once here, and twice here. So the largest number of repeats between these factorizations is 2. So I'm going to put 5 squared or 25 in. Now when I look at the only other factor that occurs, it's 2. It occurs once here and once here. So I'm just going to put 1 in there. So this is going to be 25 times 2 or 50 that I need. So let's go ahead and say that we're going to multiply both sides by 50. So 50 times 207 over 25. You can think about 50 divided by 25 is 2. 2 times 207 is going to be 414. Then minus, if you do 50 divided by 2, that's 25. 25 times 7 is 175. And then don't forget about that x there that's going to come along for the ride. And this equals, we're going to have negative. 50 divided by 10 is 5. 27 times 5 is going to be 135. And then again, the x is going to come along for the ride there. And then lastly, if I do 50 divided by 25, that's 2. 2 times 171 would be 342. Okay, so now I'm just going to do my normal procedure. I'm going to add 135x to both sides of the equation. And then I'm going to subtract 414 away from each side of the equation. Let me see what we have here. So this guy is going to cancel. This guy is going to cancel. If I do negative 175x plus 135x, that's going to give me negative 40x. And this is equal to, if I do 342 minus 414, that's going to give me negative 72. Okay, so let's slide down here a little bit and see what we have. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 40. And essentially I'm going to have x is equal to, negative over negative is positive. Let me go ahead and write 72 as 8 times 9. And let me write 40 as 8 times 5. And I think it's clear that this is going to cancel with this, and you'll basically have x is equal to 9 fifths. This will be your solution. Okay, let's look at problem number 6. Now we're working with decimals. So here's my personal opinion on this. Although I'm going to clear the decimals, I think it's a complete waste of time in practice because for most of the problems, you're going to be using a calculator. Calculators usually don't make things faster when you work with fractions, but they make things tremendously faster when you work with decimals, right? So this is just like working with whole numbers for me. So I think clearing the decimals is a complete waste of time. But again, it's taught in every single algebra class, so we need to cover it. So basically for problem 6, you have 5.4x minus 8.43 is equal to 6.1x and then minus 6.4. So how do I clear this equation of decimals? I look at the number of decimal places that I have in each term here. So this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 1, and this would be 1. So basically you go with the highest number of decimal places. That's what you need to clear, right? And to clear that, you go 10 to the power of whatever that highest number of decimal places is. In this case, it's 2, so 10 squared would be 100. You multiply both sides by 100, you'll clear all the decimals. So let's do this like this the first time. So 5.4x like this, minus 8.43. This equals, let's put 100 out in front, and then 6.1x like this, minus 6.4. Okay, so this is going to multiply by each guy inside. And again, when you multiply by 100, you're moving your decimal point 2 places to the right. right? So you just look at how many zeros you have there in that power of 10. That's how many places to the right you're moving. If it was just 10, you'd move 1 place to the right. If it was 1,000, you have 3 zeros, you'd move 3 places to the right, so on and so forth. So for this guy, I'm going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So that's 5, 4, 0, right? So this is going to go 1, 2 places to the right, then x, so 540x, then minus, this would go 1, 2 places to the right, so 843. This equals, this would be 610x, and then minus, this would be 640. Once we have the decimals cleared, again, we can just use our normal procedure. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 610x away from each side of the equation. And let's go ahead and cancel this. And I'm going to also add 843 to both sides of the equation. So let's go ahead and cancel this guy right here. So 540x minus 610x, this would give me negative 70x. And this equals 843 minus 640 is going to be 203. And all I want to do is just divide both sides by negative 70. So divide here by negative 70. So I'm going to cancel this with this, and I'll put x is equal to, let's just give our answer as a decimal. So I'm going to put a negative here, and I'm going to divide 203 by 70 in my calculator, and that would give me 2.9. So I'm going to say that x equals negative 2.9, and I'll put that as my solution. In some cases, you may want to report your answer as a fraction. It's really up to you and your teacher in terms of how you report it. The number is the same whether it's a fraction or a decimal in terms of its value. So x equals negative 2.9 is going to be our solution. Okay, let's look at problem number 7. So a very similar setup. We have 9.06 plus 6x equals 3.4x minus 2.9. So the highest number of decimal places, you see this one has 2 here, none here, 1 here, 1 here. So again, I need to multiply everything by 100 and move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So this would be 906 plus, this would be 600x. This equals, I would have 340x and then minus 290. So let's go ahead and subtract 340x away from each side of the equation. And let's also subtract 906 away from each side of the equation. Let me make that better. And I think this 3 could be more legible here, so let's do that. And let's go ahead and cancel this, and let's cancel this. So 600x minus 340x would be 260x, and this equals negative 290 minus 906. Let me make that more legible so everybody can see what that is. So this would be negative 1,196. And again, all I want to do to solve this is divide both sides by 260. So divide this side by 260. And again, because we're working with decimals, let me just give my answer as a decimal. So x equals, I know this is negative. Let's punch this into our calculator. So I end up with 4.6. So x here will equal negative 4.6. That'll be my solution. Let's look at problem number 8. So we have negative 5.5x plus 6.1x equals negative 3.7x minus 13.76. So you'll see that you have 1 decimal place, 1, 1, and 2. So again, I'm just multiplying everything by 100. So this is negative 550x plus 610x is equal to negative 370x minus 1,376. So in this case, I can combine like terms on the left. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that I have negative 550x plus 610x, which is going to give me positive 60x. So this equals negative 370x minus 1,376. Let me go ahead and add 370x. I'm not making these 3's very well today, so 300, still can't do it, so 370x to both sides of the equation. And let me show that this is going to cancel. If you punch this into your calculator, you're going to get 430x. We'll say this is equal to negative 1,376. Again, because we're working with decimals, let's just go through and give a decimal answer. I'm going to divide both sides by 430 so that I can isolate x, and I'll get x is equal to negative. Let's punch this into our calculator. I get 3.2. So my answer here is x equals negative 3.2. So that's my solution. Let's look at problem number 9. So we have 7.68 minus 3.3x equals negative 4.9x minus 4.8x. So let's go ahead and again multiply everything by 100. So this would be 768 minus 330x is equal to negative 490x minus 480x. We can combine like terms here. This would be negative 970x. So negative 970x like that. And then again, I just want to add this to both sides of the equation. So add this over here. And I'm going to subtract 768 away from each side of the equation. So this guy is going to cancel. This guy's going to cancel. If I do negative 330x plus 970x, that would be 640x. And this is equal to, again, over here I have negative 768. Let's divide both sides by 640 so we can isolate x. And so we'll have x is equal to negative, again, punch this into your calculator, 768 divided by 640, and you get 1.2. So x here equals negative 1.2. That's going to be my solution. Okay, let's look at problem number 10, the last problem. So we have negative x plus 15.6 is equal to negative 4.4 times the quantity x minus 3.7. So just like with fractions, if you have parentheses, go ahead and clear them first before you try to clear any decimals. But again, if I'm working this problem in the real world, I don't clear decimals, so this is just a matter of personal preference. So I'm going to put negative x plus 15.6 is equal to negative 4.4x. And then negative times negative is positive. I would really have to do this in a calculator. I mean, you could do it by hand, but it would take a long time, right? You'd have to do 44 times 37 and then move the decimal point in the answer 2 places to the left. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use my calculator. And that gives me 16.28. What we need to do is multiply everything by 100 because I have 2 decimal places here. All right, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'll put negative. This is a 1. If I multiply by 100, it's negative 100x. And then plus, this would be 1,560, right? Because this is going 2 places to the right. And then this equals negative 440 times x, then plus 1,628. All right, let me slide down here. And this one's pretty easy to solve, just like all of them. I'm going to add 440x to both sides of the equation. And let's go ahead and cancel this out. And then I'm going to subtract 1,560 from both sides of the equation. And let's go ahead and cancel this out. So negative 100x plus 440x would be positive 340x. And this equals, over here, 1,628 minus 1,560 is going to be positive 68. Let me divide both sides by 340. Let me make this better. Again, I can't make 3's today, so 340 over here. So x is going to be equal to, let's punch this into our calculator, and I get 0.2. So let's just write 0.2 there. So x equals 0.2. That's going to be our solution.